Tribu, and welcome to another edition of your weekly business sense. And today we will be discussing about financial inclusion, particularly core banking. And to give us more idea about what core banking services are, we are very honored to have Mr. Antonio Separovic, the Chief Executive Officer of Oradian. Oradian serves a diverse range of clients in the financial industry. Some of these clients include escrow financing, Salmon, Agribank, Cantilian Bank, and numerous others. In addition, the company delivers growth and performance for an enormous range of financial institutions across Southeast Asia and the sub-Saharan Africa. Its model-first cloud-native core banking system powers ambitious business across 12 countries and serves over 10 million pesos. So good morning, Mr. Antonio.
Good morning, Komfie, and thank you very much for having me on your show today.
And thank you for accepting our invitation. And thank you for braving the Thursday traffic. The Thursday traffic. Anyway, sir, so let's start the ball rolling. So Oradian offers an extensive core banking products and services. So what kind of services does Oradian offers to the Philippines?
So our services are both, I would say, the product and the service. So this is a cloud-native core banking system. Effectively, it means the operating system of a bank. And this bank can be any type of financial institution, doing loans, savings, and so forth. Today, we service everything from rural banks all the way through to what I see as neobanks or digital banks. So this is from your full digital first to rural branch operation and everything in between, all run on one core banking system.
So yeah, you said that basically your product is offering solutions or innovations to digitize all these rural banks, because that's the problem. That's the biggest challenges. One of the biggest challenges in our financial system is innovation and digitalization. So in the urban settings, most of our traditional banks, the big banks, they can afford to digitalize. But the rural banks, the neo banks, they're not digitalized. So how do you digitalize or provide your services, your innovative services to these rural banks, neobanks, and other financial services that are operating in the countryside?
Sure.
In relation to the goal of the government to achieve financial inclusion and financial sustainability in the unserved and underserved areas.
So I think we have a whole lot of the things coming together at the same time. One is with cloud technology, you can distribute the processing power evenly through an internet connection. So no longer do you have to be in a particular area, you can just use a connection to the internet. And this allows for the processing to be centralized, and then you can just access it through an internet connection, pretty much like you can access Facebook. So this is step one in our design, is our core banking system can be as easily operated as running Facebook. I think the second thing that coincides with that is there is a big drive, and there's always been a drive by the BSP to have financial inclusion. It was just called differently in the before. After World War II, we had rural banks. They were established to be able to serve rural areas. Today, the technology of cloud is being able to reach both urban and rural areas, and where traditionally banks operated in urban areas very efficiently, they didn't in rural areas. And now you're seeing the opportunity to shift that around. So we came into the Philippines in 2016. We then had our first rural bank regulated by the BSP using cloud technology. It was 2017. And that's been rolling out across. And what we're seeing as effect of that is our customers, the banks, they're able to service more clients, and they've grown exponentially because the cost of operating is dramatically dropped. You can operate a branch more efficiently. You can open up branches a lot quicker. You can get better reporting. And so all these little things contribute to that. I think the other thing is that the drive or the pull from the market, the demand for financial services is also growing. As we get more acquainted with financial services, we want to be able to have I don't know, Netflix on a click of a button, Facebook on a click of a button. And the same way is individuals want financial services at a click of a button. So that demand is also driving innovation. So we have a couple of factors all playing in at the same time. And I think that's the beautiful thing and the opportunity here in the Philippines.
So you mentioned that, of course, traditional banks operating in the urban areas, they were able to successfully also operate in rural areas. But these rural banks who traditionally service the rural communities, because by applying cloud-based technologies and innovations offered by Oradian, the opportunity is now reversed. These rural banks can now offer their services in the urban communities and even cross-border, right?
Correct.
So uh, how's the reception of rural banks to services to service providers like you, for them to accept or adopt digital technologies, innovations, and cloud-based technologies to allow them to achieve that kind of upscaling?
So I truly believe the reception has been extremely positive. Why? Because I've seen our customers transform the way they operate. So before they were constrained by their geography and the resources they have. Using technology, they've been able to reduce operational costs, reduce the processing time. So just this week we had our Oradian Customer Summit, where we discussed how a loan application time, for example, has been reduced from 1.5 days to 2 hours. Now that means that they can process more loans, and that enables them to serve more clients. By servicing more clients, they're also able to service bigger geographies. And they're leveraging technology to be able to go beyond what was traditionally their branches. We also see a lot of innovation coming from our customers. So they use us as a core, but then they're able to plug in other technologies, other fintechs through APIs.
Through API.
And so that gives them a competitive edge. And so what we see very interestingly, where banks traditionally monopolized technology, this is becoming readily available to everyone.
Yeah. So that democratizes.
It democratizes the access to technology, gives everyone a fairer playing field. So we're going to see, I believe we're going to see a lot more rural financial services coming into urban areas, because also as people move from rural areas to urban areas, they don't want to be changing their financial provider. So you will see brand loyalty to certain banks. And then again, I think what's also important to recognize is we are going to change the way we see financial services. Not everything will come from a traditional bank or rural bank. We'll also see innovation coming from certain apps specializing in certain services, be it insurance, be it in loans, or specialized saving products. These will be a lot more tailored, and these will be smaller financial institutions. We might have never heard of them, but they'll be available on our apps.
So meaning this traditional rural banks, aside from expanding their market to aside from expanding beyond their traditional geographical limitations, they can also now expand their services, because through the API they can add services.
They can add services
either developed by them or from third-party sources, like insurance, offer them insurance, like investment opportunities or investment solutions, like.
Correct. And they can also add other financial services through what would traditionally be competitors can start collaborating. And I think that's an important component, is when we think about open banking, it is about how do you work with more services? How do you make financial services fluid? And that's what's important. It's about how do we make this easier for everyone, rather than working with the constraints of a physical geography. And this is in a form of a revolution going on right now. The net result we can see is more people are having access to better financial services. So the banked are getting banked better, and the unbanked are now starting to be banked.
Yeah, talking about the unbanked and the underserved, the biggest challenge there by banks, even rural banks in the communities, is documentation. They're one of the biggest reasons why a majority of Filipino adults do not have bank accounts is because they cannot provide the documentations needed or required by the banks for them to open a bank account. Therefore, if they don't have a bank account, they don't have access to financial services. So they go to if they have loan requirement or credit requirements or financing requirements, they go to these non-traditional lending systems like the popular 5, 6 or the loan shark. So, how can innovations offered by Oradian to this to these rural financial services allow or simplify the process of opening a bank account, especially to the underserved communities who basically don't have any documentations?
Sure. So we already see this being addressed, for example, with microfinance, where they're using models such as reputation versus identity. So you have a group lending system where people will vouch for each other. So that's ready for the, I think that's the simplest way of kind of getting started. There's also the tiered KYC, for example. You start by taking a small loan, you get a bit of reputation, you get a better loan. But during that process, you also go through education as well as improving your access to be able to get some form of identification. And as we see new forms of identification getting more online or electronic, this starts being able to plug into services. So you will be able to define the way that you can verify who the customer is electronically. That can be shared across different systems. And so there's multiple factors that are changing the landscape. So the same way you need some identification to get a mobile phone or a contract, these forms of identification are being used now for financial services. And when systems start talking to each other, they can start validating the individual. And as their reputation, both for using a small amount of credit increases, their credit rating starts getting better, their usage, but as well as the education on how to use those services. So we are seeing this happening slowly, but as technology enables the slowness to happen at scale, it is making a difference.
Okay, so you mentioned reputation and mobile banking usage. So that's digital footprint basically. So we're talking about, of course, the process of providing financial access to this underserved and underserved, and we will be asking more of that when we return. We will take a short break.
This break is brought to you by Angkas, Beat the Traffic, Bayad Center, hashtag Bigger Better Younger Bayad, and you can buy it all. Conti's Bake Shop and Restaurant, delightfully yours. Globe, atin ang mundo. Meralco, ang liwanag ng bukas. SM, we've got it all for you. Smart, live more today. Union Bank, it starts with you. And Tata Consultancy Services. A wellness show dedicated to empowering viewers with the knowledge and inspiration needed to lead a healthy lifestyle. Be Well Now, hosted by Miss Cory Crino, every Wednesday at 2 p.m. only here at Daily Tribune's Facebook page and Tribune Now in YouTube.
Arayan at talakayang showbiz, times 2, doble-doble! Kasama ang dalawa sa walang kupas na talakera ng showbiz, Alwin Ignacio at Alex Brosas. DTT Show, tuwing Sabado at Linggo, alas 4 ng hapon, dito lang sa Diaryo Tirada ng Daily Tribune. Conversations that are masterclasses from the top honchos of various industries. Learn from their strategies and insights so you yourself can unlock your full potential. Perfect every Friday at 2 p.m. only here on Daily Tribune's Facebook page and Tribune Now in YouTube. Creative minds, entertainment icons, style influencers. We shine the spotlight on remarkable individuals who shape our cultural landscape. Every Tuesday at 2 p.m. only here in Daily Tribune's Facebook page and Tribune Now in YouTube. Straight Talk dives deep into pressing issues of leadership, politics, business, and more. Engage in insightful conversations with industry shakers, government leaders, and trailblazers every Wednesday at 10 a.m. only here on Daily Tribune's Facebook page and Tribune Now in YouTube.
And we're back, and you're still watching the Weekly Business Sense. And still with us is Mr. Antonio Separovic, the CEO of Oradian. Sir Antonio, earlier we discussed how innovations, how technology is shaping the landscape of the financial system in the Philippines, and also off cam we discussed how everybody, almost everybody, even the e-wallets and the digital apps are shifting towards providing financial services. So how is that further um, change or shift the financial paradigm in the Philippines, the financial landscape,
So I think
especially in providing financial access to the end bank and the non bank.
so. What we see is the demand for financial services is much greater than the supply. As I mentioned, there are uh, traditional businesses or banks had constraints. With the cost of innovation constantly being lowered with technology and cloud, we are seeing innovation coming, as you mentioned, from wallets, from mobile providers. Anyone who is effectively got a license or a license to operate with financial services is now able to get onto the digital platform. And as we have a growing number of young individuals wanting to get access to these financial services, needing those financial services, making it easier to pay, for example, all of this is driving us onto our mobile phones. And as this happens, we're seeing new players coming into the market. There won't be the traditional banks, but there will be things like the mobile phone provider or just a grouping of a market, or it might be a loan coming from a particular brand. So you will see this kind of innovation coming, and we're going to see more and more of it. More traction is already happening, and that's that's another instrument in providing the service. Now, it's not the complete range that a traditional bank has, but it serves a certain vertical. So we'll see deeper verticals coming from new players.
You mentioned that the demand for financial services is higher than the supply. And I just don't know exact figure, but last month we hosted this Asian Innovation Forum hosted by the Daily Tribune. And one of our guests told us that even if all the banks or even non-traditional banks, all legal financial services will combine all the resources, they will still not be able to provide the demand for financial service across the country. I think they can only provide up to 30% demand. That's why there's still a need for this non-traditional financial service like the 5/6. So now, given that there's a high demand and lower supply, and then the discrepancy is being supplied by these loan sharks, how can innovation or innovative services offered by Oradian lessen the gap? So for those financial services to provide the needed lending facilities or lending instruments required by across the country.
Sure, sure. It's a very good question. So what I see is the legal and the registered financial institutions who are providing the services, they often are constrained by the ability on how they operate. So, and that's where we come in, is the ability to operate, how to do that quicker, how to do that at scale, and how to free up what traditionally has been burning them on the back office and pushing that back office into front office, meaning that their staff was focusing more on clients, serving more clients. Also, how do they take that back office and create new roles and departments that is innovation? How can they also capitalize on all these new technologies? So that's the big play that we're doing. The second play is, how does that financial institution connect with other financial institutions, other services? And that's the whole concept of open banking. So there's two roles that we're playing, is optimizing the existing operation and then working with other systems. And again, I repeat, that's what the beauty of the cloud is. Now, the cloud is also being defined by the PSP as a way to enhance innovation. The government is doing that in its own right. So we're seeing that these pieces are coming together, and that's why we see a big actually turn the last couple of years. We also saw a black swan event with COVID,
yes.
coming in, where individuals very quickly let go of cash, which everyone said was impossible, and they started adopting a different behavior.
Yeah.
And that behavior change is also playing part of this shift and change. And so it will take some time. Obviously, you can't go from 30 to 100 overnight in terms of access, but we will see that number is getting faster and faster, growing closer to 100.
So you mentioned there's a big opportunity for the Philippines as far as financial services are concerned, because I mean, before the pandemic, 80% of the adult Filipinos were unbanked, but after the pandemic, that number was lowered to 50%. So there's a big growth among Filipinos that are now banked. And in the next couple of years, how do you see these innovations impacting or shifting or changing the financial landscape in the Philippines, wherein a big majority or a majority of the Filipino population will be banked and serviced by traditional financial services?
So I think the big shift is going to happen is we're going to get it closer to 80-90%. That's the first shift, and I think that's the most important part, is how do we get more individuals banked. The second is, how do we work more collaboratively versus competitively. I think I believe at least, is in the past banks were competing together, competing too much for a small pool of people rather than collaborating. But with collaboration, you increase the size of the market. So I think that for me is like phase 2. And then the third phase is, how does the Philippines better interact in the APAC region? So how do we start working? Because again, Filipinos travel, move. How are they able to have their financial services, not just in their local geography, but when they're abroad? Many Filipinos live abroad. How can they have financial services from the Philippines rather than using foreign banks as their provider? So we will see that shift. So first it's about getting everyone inclusive, then it's everyone as a community within the Philippines, and then it's being part of the larger APAC community. So those are the 3 phases I see happening, and that's going to become easier through technology.
Yeah, you meant that there's of course the API that allows everybody of these technologies to communicate and to collaborate. And you mentioned collaboration, which is basically the new business model now is competition. So that's I will not be looking at you as a competitor, but as a collaborator. So how will that how is this new concept of competition increase the shift in the financial landscape?
Well, for one, the biggest shift is the entire potential of the market just got bigger. So once we start working together, we start having what's a network effect. And so it's not a case of 1 + 1, but rather 3 × 3. And so that's that multiple effect that we're going to be getting by collaborating. And that's collaborating in multiple levels, from sharing of, for example, identity. And so that enables individuals to then get access to financial services. Then it's about having credit services and making sure that people are able to get credit, sharing information that people don't get over indebted. So there's a lot of little, and I'm naming 2 specifics, but there's a lot of areas that benefit from sharing and collaborating.
And of course, one of the biggest problems of our traditional banks and financial services is the low usage of their lending portfolios. So how can, because a majority of the Filipinos would rather borrow money or take credits from these non-traditional traditional financial services like the loan sharks. So how can like Oradian is digitizing all these rural banks. There's these financial services, particularly in the countryside. So how will these innovations make it easier for Filipinos to have access to these traditional financial services?
So as the traditional rural banks become more digitized, they are able to look at what other products and services they can offer. And so once you go for a loan, you can then get a bigger loan, a better loan, a lower interest rate loan. As competition comes in and everyone becomes more digitized, you will then have consumers have choice. They can choose one over the other, and that will start bringing interest rates down. But additionally to that, you can start taking, when you take out a loan, you can take out an insurance policy. You can take out a savings policy. And so you start opening up the amount of services. With that comes education, and I think that's a really important part. Financial education is absolutely critical once we start bringing everyone online. But you will start seeing more value, and that the value of insurance and the value of savings starts changing individual behavior. Start thinking long-term versus short-term. So what we'll see, and long-term planning, particularly long-term financial planning, brings economic prosperity for all. So we effectively, by connecting people, we start with the basics of giving them a service. We then start bringing a difference in behavior, and then that has an economic benefit for the community as well, at even the smallest level in the most rural areas.
Are there other service, Oradian services that you are planning to offer to the Philippine market? And if there are, which areas do you think offer opportunities? Or are
Yes.
you already offering all your services?
So I would say yes, we're constantly offering our service, but part of our service is continuous innovation. So it's not that we separate Philippines versus non-Philippines. We're constantly innovating in the Philippines. We're constantly learning, both from the regulator, our competitors, as well as our customers. And there's the foremost is we're always listening to what they need, and then we're finding ways to constantly improve. Our target is to reach more clients. So we're encouraged to help them serve more clients. Hence, that innovation is how do we make that possible, how do we make it quicker, and how do we make it cheaper for them, and how do we make that operation easier. So the innovation is consistent. We're seeing something new every year, and 2024 holds a lot of exciting things, particularly for complex, deep tech innovators. And that also starts meaning that our traditional banks will start thinking differently about innovation as well, because now they can actually deep code into our code. So that's the next play, but we're going to see a lot more on that in 2024.
Actually, this is a very exciting conversation, and we're learning a lot. I'm learning a lot from my conversation with Mr. Antonio Separovic here. And thank you very much for gracing us today. Thank you very much for taking your time. And can you, at this point, I'd like you to have your any parting words to our viewers and readers. Invite them to avail of your services.
Well, I think that the one thing I'd invite everyone to take away is technology can sometimes be seen in a negative light. We need to embrace technology. We need to understand it, take the time to learn it, and see how you can benefit. Technology is a tool. So the better you use that tool, the better the outcome of your business.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Nice having you here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
And with that, this has been Komfie Manalo, and this has been Business Sense. See you next week.